about feast-famine cycling, this process of developing autophagy, cleansing our body, but also helping stimulate muscle growth and lean body tissue development. And so my famous quote is that when you fast, your body gets really good at using energy in the most efficient manner possible. You develop metabolic flexibility, which is the ability to change our metabolism to meet the demands of our environment. So if I'm exercising at a high intensity, like I'm sprinting, I need to produce energy very, very quickly. But if I'm sitting here doing this presentation, I don't need a whole lot of energy. I can be much more efficient in how I create my energy. And ultimately, we need energy for everything. And so the more energy we're putting into activity or digestion, the less energy goes into healing and repair. So we want to be very energy efficient, but we also want to be very metabolically flexible. And when we're strong in these areas, it's harder to kill us in a sense. We have a greater survival advantage and greater resiliency to stress. And that's really the goal here. In life in general, it's about being as resilient to stress as possible. And so fasting as well as feasting really helps us with that. So when we feast, basically times of feasting are about growth. They're about building cells. They're about reproduction. Okay, they're about basically generating lean body tissue. Whereas times of fasting is going to be about cell cleansing, breaking down old cellular organelles, breaking down old tissue, and helping to heal and regenerate new tissue. So we want to basically cycle between these. Fasting is very anti-inflammatory, which is very powerful for the body, whereas feasting helps stimulate pathways like mTOR, mammalian target or rapamycin, and insulin, which have to do with metabolism, like basically increasing our metabolic rate, increasing muscle tissue development, building. So we've got to be thinking about building as well as cleansing and healing. And so when we're a child, we need to favor times of feasting. We need a lot of food because we're building and we're building very, very quick. However, once we become an adult, once we become full grown, roughly in that around 20, 21 years old, then we can start to really push into the fasting. Okay, we need more fasting than we do feasting at that period because we're not growing as quick. And so again, the key here is creating very strong, resilient human beings. Now, hormone optimization is a key factor that happens when we have feast-famine cycling. We know that if we have a calorie deficit for too long, so if we're fasting for too long a period of time, or if we're under-eating for too long a period of time, it can cause a lot of unwanted problems. We get too much autophagy, we lose too much lean body mass, our sex hormones drop, we just don't feel good. Our thyroid hormone drops, we have dry skin, we lose our hair, we feel awful. That's definitely not where we want to be. But at the same time, if we just constantly are feasting, we're going to cause tremendous stress in our digestive system. We're going to develop insulin resistance. We are going to develop chronic metabolic diseases like cancer, heart disease. So we need the combination of both of them. And that helps to improve insulin sensitivity, optimize thyroid function, helps optimize adrenal health and sex hormones. And so basically with our thyroid, when we are fasting for too long, or we have prolonged caloric restriction, so we might be intermittent fasting, but just not eating enough when we do eat, it's going to cause an increase in reverse T3. And reverse T3, basically it's going to increase cortisol and stress hormone production, which then is going to increase reverse T3, which is an inactive form of thyroid hormone. So we're going to get a lowered production of T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone that we really need to interact with cells. We're going to get increased RT3, and we're going to slow down our metabolism. We're not going to feel as good. Our brain's not going to feel as good. We're going to end up with drier skin, more constipation, lethargy, lower energy levels, sometimes hair falling out. These are the kind of issues that we may deal with when we are fasting too much and not incorporating feasting. So this is the importance of cycling between feasting and famine, feasting and fasting. So how do we implement this? Well, number one is I recommend gently moving into a ketogenic lifestyle, a higher fat, lifestyle, a lower carbohydrate diet in general. We avoid snacking. So we go down to 2 to 3 meals a day. And we develop our fasting muscle. We can start with something like a simple fast, 12 hours overnight, and push it into a brunch fast, 14 hours each day, and then maybe go into a crescendo fast where we go a 16-hour fast, 2 to 3 days a week, non-consecutive days in that crescendo cycle fasting, and then slowly progress from there. For some individuals, they do great doing a 16-8 or an 18-6. I know for myself, I tend to thrive doing an 18-6, somewhere in that time frame. I do an 18 to 20-hour fast every day. And then 2 days a week, I do a 24-hour fast where I only eat one meal. For me, that works great. Okay, when I do eat, I feast. I eat a lot of food, and I don't typically overly concern myself with carbohydrates, although I tend to just eat a lower carbohydrate diet in general. And so, when you do that, you really don't need to count macros because you get more of the hormone balance and fat adaptation because of the prolonged periods of fasting each day. Now, not everybody can do that. Some people need to eat 3 meals, and they might eat those 3 meals in a 8 to 10 hour window. That's totally fine. And you can absolutely do that and start to build your fasting muscle. And then maybe 1 day a week, you might try to do a longer fast, like a 24-hour fast. 1 day a week, you may try to incorporate a lot more carbohydrates where you have more of a feast day. And I found that tends to work for many individuals where they have a feast day once a week where they have more carbohydrates, ideally more nutrient-dense sources of carbohydrates, and then 1 day a week where they have a longer fast, along with daily, some level of intermittent fasting on a daily basis, even if it's a simple fast, like a 12-hour overnight. So doing that can be really helpful. Obviously, focusing on hydration during the fasting window. It's one of the biggest mistakes we see people make is they're just not hydrating well when they are fasting, which makes it harder to fast because they're dehydrated. They tend to have more cravings. Getting regular exercise, moving your body well. In fact, moving well at the end of your fasting window can be really good for stimulating more autophagy, more cell cleansing. Keeping stress down in general, prioritizing good sleep and good rest. Improving your digestive health, considering digestive health supplements, especially if you're going to feast. When you do eat a lot of food, especially when you've been fasting for, longer periods, 16, 18, 20, 24 hours, taking some digestive enzymes, maybe some hydrochloric acid can be really helpful because you want to eat till you're full. You're not trying to count calories and count macros necessarily. You're really trying to just eat until you're fully satiated. That is the key there. Now, signs you may have overeaten, if you're noticing that you're bloated after meals, you've got indigestion, nausea, you're just fatigued, you need to take a nap after your meal, or you just can't think right, those are signs that you may be overeating when you are eating. Now, obviously, also you may gain weight. If you're fasting, feeling pretty good, eating a lot, and still gaining weight, then that's certainly not, that shouldn't happen. When you're incorporating intermittent fasting, more of a ketogenic style lifestyle, you shouldn't be gaining weight. And so unless you're trying to gain weight, unless you're underweight, then you may be, feasting and eating a lot and trying to gain muscle mass. That's certainly something that's possible. But if you are not trying to gain weight and you're gaining weight, that's a sign you may be overeating. Signs of undereating, hunger and cravings just a few hours after eating. After you eat, you really should be able to be satiated for at least 4 to 6 hours, and that, at least in that time frame, you should feel well satiated. You may eat again, right? You maybe have a tight eating window and trying to eat 2 meals in a 4-hour eating window, and that's fine, but it's not like you would be hungry and have cravings. If you have ongoing hunger and cravings, it's a sign you're not eating enough. Okay, so you definitely want to make sure you're eating enough. Obviously, too much weight loss. Fatigue, not right after a meal, but a few hours after a meal, or brain fog a few hours after, like 2 to 3 hours after, it's a sign you're just not getting enough calories in, especially if you're noticing that when you eat, it relieves the fatigue. You're hungry, and when you eat, you feel better. Okay, that's a sign you may be under eating, so you want to be able to address that as well. And then, this is really important because if we're eating a large meal, we want to be able to stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to digest food more effectively. It helps stimulate the production of hydrochloric acid in our stomach, pancreatic enzymes, bile flow. And the key here is really being mindful about how we eat. So deep breaths, being in a state of gratitude, really smelling the aromas of the food can help stimulate digestive juices, help us digest the food more effectively. Just kind of being present and mindful as we're eating rather than just scarfing the food down and that's it. This is really how you're going to optimize your digestion on a regular basis. Certainly taking supplements. I'm a huge fan of that. I take digestive enzymes with every meal. And I would highly recommend that. However, what I would say is even more important is whole body mindful eating. So I don't eat a whole lot of meals. I eat like 11, 12 meals a week. But when I eat, I try to be as mindful as possible and try to slow down my eating and be as grateful as possible so my body can produce the digestive juices it needs to optimize the digestion. So that's so important. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of today's video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do, and would love to hear your thoughts on this video in the comments section below. We'll see you on a future online training. Be blessed, everybody.